Thanks to those joining me live and those that will join us here on the archive. You're listening on archive. Give us a like. Let's get to 100 likes. We actually got over 100 last HCP on this channel. I saw the one on your channel last week. We're just like right there. And for whatever reason, they just don't want to do it. It's like,
just hit the like button.
Hit the like. 100 likes. 100. You like the show. You want to continue seeing the show. Show us you like it. Hit the like. I know you guys have it in here, all right? It also lets YouTube know that this is content you want to see, right? Kelly, did you get a chance to see Stephen A. Smith's rant about the fight?
I didn't. I just
quick kind of. He basically said, "Yeah, Usyk won," and he literally said, "Yada yada yada." He literally said, "Yada yada yada." And this is the problem I have with boxing. I never get the fights I want. We wanted, Fury to fight Joshua. Now we're not gonna get it because they did this fight. Like I don't know. I just don't understand. I think this is a good thing for boxing. And people can check out my rant if they want. But that was Stephen A. Look, the fight on Saturday, Usyk wins it. I predicted a tough fight, but a fight that Usyk would win by decision. I was almost wrong, and I probably should have been wrong in the 9th round. It probably should have been stopped. But nonetheless, it didn't by decision.
You think it should have been stopped?
I mean, by letter of the law, it was the right call, I guess. But I also know it would have been stopped in most situations.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that though, because I like the referees taking everything into account. I saw somebody say, well, if this happened to Usyk, it would have been stopped if it was the other way around. But the thing about Fury is he's shown attrition before. He's shown if you're taking Wilder's punches multiple times and you're knocked down, and you have the ability to recover. I know this was different and it felt different.
It was very different.
But I think you give Fury the benefit of the doubt. I like referees who take everything into account going in and use common sense and use discretion. And I felt like the referee used his discretion well in that 9th round. I saw a lot of criticism of him. I don't think it's warranted.
Look, I agree with you, and here's why I agree with you. So I said, look, by letter of the law, it's a right call. He was being held up by the ropes, and per rules, that is the call you make, right? Mm-hmm. The rule. Shout out to Nando Llamas. I already know what he wants. Like you know what I mean? Like so let's just give it to him. Like it is what it is. Thank you for support.
I'm a hard-working
man. So shout out to Nando Llamas. Look, to me, it's like it was a right call. And if anybody says, "Oh, but if this was any other fight,
but it's not.
They would have stopped it." But it's not any other fight, is it? This is for the greatest prize in boxing, the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship of the world.
Right.
With a guy that's shown resiliency before, 2 undefeated great fighters. Not just Fury, by the way, Usyk as well. They deserve the benefit of the doubt in that situation. They're getting paid a lot of money, and there's very high stakes. They both want the benefit of the doubt. You give it to them.
Yeah.
You don't ref this the same way you would if it was like 2 prospects going at it or something like that. You just don't.
That's right. As far as Stephen A. Smith, real quick, that's his, as Lobster 11 said, that's his brand, right? It's what's become popular on ESPN and Fox Sports is. You just tune in for the talking heads and they just scream and yell at each other, and they're covering multiple sports. Yeah. So the issue with that is they're not specialists. And particularly when it comes to boxing, combat sports in general, Stephen A. Smith, that's all he has because he can't sit there and properly break down the fight. He can't give it. He can't sit.
Is that what the yada 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 is about? Yada yada yada.
Yeah, and so he gives his little spiel on whatever he felt in the fight, and then he has to transition into whatever is going to get him clicks or whatever he can talk about with boxing for 2 minutes because he can't properly break down the historic sense of the fight. He can't break down anything technical with the fight. He can't break down Usyk's resume. He can't break down Fury's resume. So that's all he has. That's all he has to go to. So that's what that's about. And he makes a lot of money off of it, which at that point you have to blame the market. But the market is the market. I don't know what to say.
And speaking of the market, and look, I am not at all people. If you guys want to see my video, I shred the guy yesterday. But the perception of boxing, regardless of reality, is what the perception is. But the perception is ultimately boxing's fault. It's easy to throw shade at the sport. It's easy to say, it's like the popular thing to say, "Oh, boxing, they don't give us what we want. Look at UFC, they give us what we want." Yada yada yada. And so I get that, but at the same time, I mean, he got shredded. Is what it is. Let's talk about the fight. A couple of things that I haven't really had a chance, believe it or not, to talk about, despite doing some shows, but I just haven't, like, this just, it's one of those fights that, like, more things come to mind. Like, the more you talk about it, you're like, oh yeah,
There's a lot of angles to go into.
Yeah, like the one thing that I don't want to miss out on saying is this, and I caught this when I was looking at footage of the fight and photos of the fight. If anybody bothers to pay attention from the waist down, right? Because I get it, like Fury outweighs Usyk by 40 pounds and all that, which is true, and I get that, but I think people forget just how top heavy, how waist up heavy Fury is. Like it is astonishing. Like, he's got some long legs, but he's got some like scrawny legs. And when I looked at some side by side photos of Usyk and Fury from the waist down, I mean, Usyk's legs are thicker.
Yeah.
Right. Pause. But you know what I mean? He just got thick. He's just more thick. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. But the reason that's important, Calix, is I saw some Wilder fans. They're still going at it. They're still trying to convince themselves at this point that Wilder was cheated. Why did he lean on him like he did to Wilder? And why did he muscle him around? And why did he fight that way against Usyk? Something's going on. Like no, it's not that complicated. Fury tried those tactics with Usyk. They didn't work. The problem with Wilder, his legs are even skinnier.
Yeah, he's got basketball legs.
Yeah, he's got very skinny basketball legs, like skinny, like little skinny. He's just very thin boned. And Usyk's legs are not like Usyk's got, like I said, the dude's thick. All right, pause. Right, but you know what I mean. What I'm saying is, when he would try to lean on Fury on Usyk used that better. He has a better center of gravity than Fury. That's number one, right? And he used his legs. He used his legs to put weight down, right? And use his shoulder to press against Fury, and sometimes even enough just to nudge him off, duck low, and get out. That's what he just kept doing the whole time. He would kind of use Fury's leverage against him. So when Fury would lean on him, all right, he would almost lose balance at times because of what Usyk was doing, right? He was putting it all in the legs. Whenever construction, you lift something heavy, you use your legs, all right? That's what you're taught to do, all right? You don't put the strain on your back, right? So at the end of the day, I honestly believe Usyk has stronger legs than Fury, and he used that to his advantage, right? He's also using leverage on his hips, right? Well, while he's pulling, it was all the shoulder thing. He did the same thing to Joshua, right? People got on Joshua. Oh, Joshua, he's so dumb. Why did he try to box the boxer? Why did he use his size? Like, if it was that simple, that's all you have to do to beat Usyk. That's what they would do, guys. They tried. It didn't work. It's very elementary. You have to be more creative than that, right? And I've been trying to tell people, right, that Usyk's not this itty-bitty little dude. They're talking about like that Lomachenko in there, like Boxing Fury or something. Like he's a 6'3" solid guy that's 223 pounds of optimum weight. There's no extra fatty tissue on him. There's no, like, Fury is not at his optimum weight. He's at least 10 pounds heavier than he should be, quite frankly, in my opinion. All right. This is 223 pounds of optimum weight, Alex, right? Evenly distributed. He's got a better center of gravity than Fury. And I think he kind of gave a blueprint on how to deal with a bigger guy that's leaning on you. He kind of laid a blueprint for it. That's the way you do it. And even when he hurt Fury and Fury was trying to hold, right, he wouldn't let him. He kept ducking low, right? And Fury couldn't grab a hold of him, all right? And he was he would duck low, move at an angle, right, to set up another opening, kept moving to his weak side, right? And to me, that's what ultimately won Usyk this fight in the second half of this fight. When Fury felt like he's figured me out, he's trying to land to the left, he blooded up my nose, he tried to rough up Usyk, and it just wasn't working. It just didn't work. And I think a worry a lot of us had was, is the ref going to allow Fury to do X, Y, and Z? It ultimately didn't matter, did it?
Usyk's he's a great clinch fighter. He's not going to allow you. And all of them, like, if you look at the big, I would say of the past 5 years, the big four would be Usyk, Inoue, Bud, and Canelo. And right now, I would say that it's become the big three: Usyk, Inoue, Bud. They don't allow themselves to be clinched. They're not. They seem to be great at wrestling and getting their arms free and going to work. And Usyk's definitely part of that. And part of that is what you just alluded to and what I've talked about. You've heard me talk about this in the past, having a basketball background too, is as a taller guy, I didn't like posting up smaller guys. It seems to be this thing to where you got a smaller guy on, you go post them up, but that doesn't always work. Why? Because they have a lower center of gravity. I'd rather post up taller guys because they're top heavy, skinnier legs. Those short dudes are tough to deal with even in the post. It's harder to post them up because they have that low center of gravity and they get underneath you and push you back. And Usyk does that to these taller fighters. He turns their advantages into disadvantages. He flips it on them. And you and I have talked about this as well, D-Style. We don't throw out height advantage anymore. We don't throw out reach advantage anymore because we just throw out disparity instead of advantage because we don't know if it's an advantage or not. And for these taller fighters who aren't using their height and their reach as well anymore in this generation, it often becomes a disadvantage to them. We've seen Canelo. The reason he's gone up in weight is to flip that on guys. He uses their height advantage against them and gets on the inside and works to the body. Inoue is doing the same thing. Lomachenko has done the same thing at 135. Bud has done the same thing as he's gone up in weight. And now we got Usyk doing the same thing as heavyweight. He's turning advantages into disadvantages and beating these guys up by getting underneath them, as you said. And it's almost worked better for him as he's gone up in weight too, because as he's gained this muscle, you can see his legs are bigger. He's got that lower center of gravity. He's using it against these fighters. And another thing that I saw Steve Kemp point out that I noticed during the fight is, and this happens to a lot of tall fighters, I believe, when they're in there with shorter guys they can't deal with, is Usyk is great at turning on his punches. Much like Inoue, he snaps on him at the right time, at the very end of his punch. And he completely turns. You just talked about it. He turns his hips into his punches. And you saw the difference in this fight and why I scored it and gave the benefit of the doubt to Usyk in a lot of these rounds and didn't have it a close fight on my scorecard is Tyson Fury is trying to outpoint Usyk, and he's just throwing his punches out there and try to score points while Usyk is trying to hurt him. Usyk is landing effective punches. Usyk is turning his hips, turning his punches, snapping them at the right time. And you see why they had the effect on Fury that they did. And Fury was only turning on those punches in the 5th and 6th round. If you go back and watch this fight, that's when he's really turning on him. And that's when Usyk started to have some issues, but Fury just couldn't do it over an extended period of time where Usyk could.
100%. And I just want to share this image. All right. It kind of, and I understand that photos could be like, I get all that, but it's just to kind of give you an idea, right?
Mhm.
That there's not much of a difference, let's say, with the legs, right? When you would see Wilder, they look like toothpicks, like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I'm not here to tell everybody that Usyk's got some tree trunk legs or something like that, or legs of a Muay Thai fighter, nothing like that. But he does, like, he carries a lot of the weight on his legs,
Yeah.
and the reality is, Fury does have very long legs. Number one, which he doesn't get the right center of gravity like he should, maybe. Okay. And the other thing, Calix, is, and I said this last week. Now he did find success to the body with the right hand to the body, like just a traditional hook to the body is what he was landing on Usyk. But we kept hearing like, oh man, if Dubois was able to hurt him and drop him to the body, just imagine what Fury's going to do. And the one thing that people kept missing was the body shot Dubois landed. If Dubois had to bend his knees, right, in order to get the right trajectory to throw that body shot down the pipe, right, um, on on right in the middle of the abdomen of Usyk, if he had to do that, just imagine what a 6'9" Fury would have to do to get that particular shot in. Like, it just wasn't an opening for Fury. That's not a punch Fury was going to land. He never once. Can anybody name to me the straight right or left down the pipe to the body that he landed this whole fight against Usyk?
Mhm.
It wasn't going to happen. That shot's open for. I could see if somebody tells me, that, and he did hurt him there. Is AJ? I could see AJ doing that, but I just didn't see that opening. Why? Because he's not a knee bender, bro.
Yeah.
Like, Fury's not the guy that's gonna bend his knees and throw shots down the pipe. He doesn't fight that way.
It's
It,
just
it-
naturally harder the taller you get. It's,
yeah,
I've seen these arguments, and it comes up in the pound for pound stuff. Well, these guys are slow at the heavy. Look, the taller you get, the bigger you get. It's just tougher to move in the way you want, the manner you want to move. And we saw that again with Usyk using those angles. Like you said, if you watch the lower body, his feet are a lot quicker. He's able to get the angles he wants with the front foot placement, and have his way late in this fight with Fury, as Fury naturally wore down quicker as the bigger man. But I do want to address this too, because Nando has brought it up in the chat, and it's what I also
Mm.
recognize as I'm watching this fight. And as I was watching the second AJ fight too, I was actually impressed with AJ in the second fight. A lot of people were raking him over the coals and stuff for losing to Usyk, naturally smaller man, but I thought AJ came in with the right game plan. I don't know how much of that was Robert Garcia, but they were talking about this isn't work. I actually thought it was a good game plan, and AJ landed 37 body punches in that fight, and he took Usyk to that place where
Yeah.
Usyk, you're like, is he going to win this fight? There's been multiple Usyk fights like that. Bradis was the big one. Bradis was Usyk's toughest fight, and he got past it. Second AJ fight in particular, and now the Fury fight. I want to give Fury credit too, because I've been critical, and most of my criticisms come from two things. One, he just hasn't been a good champion. We've all said he's a really good to great fighter. That's up for interpretation, but he's been a terrible champion. And there's a difference, D style. Like, you can be a great fighter, but you're not a good champion. And he's been a terrible champion. I'd argue he's like, as a boxing fan, it's just been a frustrating run watching Tyson Fury over the years. So that's been my criticism. My other criticism is going after these narratives that need to be attacked, that need to be pushed back on, that this guy's an all-time great heavyweight. And some people have even said he's the greatest heavyweight of all time. And you push back on that as well. However, in his big fights, he showed up, and I felt like he showed up in this fight.
Yeah,
I
of
thought
course.
this was the best Fury You can argue it's the best Fury we've seen.
I do think this was a tougher fight physically, anyway, for Usyk than the Bradis fight was. But.
I don't know about that. I would argue against that. However, it's still a tough fight. And the reason I got to give Fury credit too is we're saying it's a good fight, not a great performance, or a really good fight. Some people say great fight, not a great performance. We're saying it's a great performance, but we talk about Bud versus Errol. That wasn't a great fight. It was a great performance, right? Inoue versus Fulton Jr., great performance. And we say that because Spence and Fulton Jr. were not on those fighters' levels. However, Fury showed that that's a good adversary for Usyk. He was a worthy adversary of Usyk.
He was just
a beat down, and he was.
I never seen Usyk like in trouble like he was in the middle rounds. I never seen him like that.
I had Fury up 4-3. The betting odds had him as a 10-1 favorite. So we talked about that place Usyk went to, much like Bud against Sean Porter, right? In between 10 and 11. His corner tells him, you're down. And Bud says, I'm down. So Bud goes to this other level that other special athletes can only get to, right? Usyk went to that level in between 7 and 8, kisses the crucifix, says a prayer, and then he goes to work, right? But Fury took him to that place, right? He made him go to another level. So you got to give Fury credit for that.
I do agree with that. Look, here's the thing with Usyk. And I think the reason people underestimate Usyk, I don't think they're going to do it now, but the reason they keep underestimating him, and the reason we come out of fight saying he could have lost that fight,
yeah,
but he didn't. But like at the same time, you feel like, oh, but he showed another level that the other guy couldn't compete in. Like it's one of those weird dynamics, and the reason that it happens is. You see, Usyk is like Bobby Fischer with boxing gloves on. Okay, he's like the literal definition of a chess master in that boxing ring. Because what he's doing from the very beginning, he's chipping away, and he's chipping away at the pieces that you just take for granted. Like you don't really think they're that much big of a deal, right? He'll give you a rook while he takes 3 pawns, and you're thinking to yourself, I just took one of his best pieces. This dude's done. I'm setting him up, right? You don't think you're going to need those pawns, but then as the game progresses, as we get deeper into the weeds of it and exchanges happen, and then before you know it, shit, I literally don't have any pawns left. Holy shit, I'm a sitting duck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in check after check after check. His queen's guarded by his fucking pawns. I got nothing. Look, I'm getting chipped away. I took his queen like a little bit ago, and it doesn't even matter right now. Because that's what Usyk does. He takes away pieces you don't think really matter, and then by the end of the fight, he's cornered you in such a way, right? He's figured out every little detail about you, right? He's got you second guessing when to throw a fucking jab at that point, right? It just your options become limited and you see it progress throughout the fight. That's why people believe, oh, Tony Bellew was doing really good.
Mm-hmm.
No, Tony Bellew was getting set up, is what Tony Bellew was getting done. And if he wasn't knocked out in that round, it was going to become a one-sided beatdown for the rest of that fight, right? Oh, but AJ started really good. Okay, it's a common theme. Chisora started really good, and then until he wasn't. Just Chisora didn't know what to do, and he was like in survival mode in the final few rounds because he literally didn't know what to do with Usyk anymore, right? That is something he does regardless of your level, right? There's guys that maybe don't even belong in the ring with Usyk that are going to look decent against him for the first few rounds because those are the rounds where he's chipping away at little things that maybe we don't notice at first. Even his opponents don't notice. Maybe they think it's not that big of a deal, right? But then those things start to really matter the more the fight progresses, right? That's what Usyk is, man. That this guy is a boxing master, is what he is,
And
right?
we have a handful of them right now,
Yeah.
right? So I'm glad you brought up the chess analogy because people have thrown levied criticisms of Bud for this same thing. Um, I've said this before, and people have come after me for this, but I'll always believe this. I think Bud purposely gets hit early in fights. I thought Golovkin was the same way. He purposely gets hit early in the fights in order to lure you into a fight. George Foreman used to do this. I remember watching an interview of George Foreman where he said, I used to lure opponents in for my right hand. I used to purposely throw the jab 2 to 3 inches shorter than I was able to throw it in order to give them a false sense of where the end of my jab was. Guys just think a certain way to lure fighters in. Bud did it against Avanesian. Bud did it against a number of guys to where it'll look bad, maybe to some people, some of these new age boxing fans who just don't think you should get hit at all and think you should fight in a safe manner. But then Bud, at a certain point in the fight, he just mangles you, completely destroys you. Canelo gives up early rounds, but Inoue does it. Inoue did it against Donaire. He did it against several fighters. They'll lure you into a false sense of security and then just beat the hell out of you. And that's the chess playing part of it. And I just keep going back to this. I think it's more magnified at the heavyweight division because things that look like advantages turn into disadvantages for these fighters. I bring up the basketball comparison because I think it's a perfect one. There are certain guys, they're shorter than you, but you don't go in the post against those guys. And somebody will see, oh, you got a 3-4 inch advantage against this guy. Just take him in the post. No, I'd rather just shoot over him. Do you see this guy's legs? You see me trying to post him up and he's pushing me off the block. He's obviously not a guy I want to post up. It's too much work and it's not effective. I'd rather just try to shoot over him. And Usyk's the same way as boxing. He just gets underneath these guys. You saw the difference in how he's turning on his punches, how he's snapping these punches at the right time. And Fury, as the guy with skinnier legs, taller, he can't get that leverage, and he's just trying to outpoint Usyk, and it's not going to work.
Yeah,
he was only able to turn on those punches for 2 rounds.
What I found, and again, it's all the little details. Just the way he would use that center of gravity and just nudge Fury just enough to give him some space, duck low, get under him where he knows Fury, like I said, is not a knee bender, right? It's just ain't gonna happen. Just enough to get out of the way, and he always gets out of the way at an angle where Fury is vulnerable. He found the way to make one of the most frustrating things about Fury, right? He found the way to flip it on him. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, this is going to be a detriment to you. When you try to hold me or lean on me, I'm going to turn it against you, right? And people wonder, why didn't he do it more, right? Oh, wow, he kept doing it to Wilder, but he stopped doing it to Usyk. There's a reason for it. Yeah. If Fury don't give a shit, it would get pissed off at the way he's winning. If that was a working strategy, he would have kept doing it. All right.
Fury will stink it out if you give it to him. He'll stink it out, and he wasn't able to. Usyk's not allowing him to lean on him. He's not going to allow you to clinch on him. And I think Fury knew that because we all wondered why.
Lean on me when you're not strong.
But remember when we wondered,
I'll duck low. I'll get you at an angle. Here comes the left. Anyway, go ahead.
Remember the weight, and we're worried about why does Fury look skinnier and better shape? I think Fury knew he wasn't going to be able to enact that game plan on Usyk. And he tried to.
It would have been worse if he was heavier, Calix. It would have been worse because.
That's what I'm saying. I think he knew that.
Yeah.
Fury's smart. He's an intelligent fighter. I think he knew I'm not going to be able to do that against him. I got to try to get as light-footed as possible, as thin as possible, as fast as possible to try to deal with this guy. I think he always knew this was going to be a tough matchup. But I want to ask you this because we talked about the big talk the past couple of days has been, where does this leave Usyk? Is he an all-time great? Is he where does he? But what about Fury? Because I talked about on Monday on a roundtable last week
Right.
how Fury has he's taken us as boxing fans, like, it's been frustrating his career, right? Great fighter, a really good fighter, however you judge him, but a terrible champion. But much like Andre Ward, who for 4 years there didn't do much of anything in his career between Chad Dawson and the first Kovalev fight. If you win that last fight and you go out undefeated like Andre Ward did, you can revise history. The
Right.
victors write history, right? So a lot of that 4 years is swept under the rug. And much like Fury, if he would have won this fight and been undisputed heavyweight champion, baddest man on the planet, lineal, and undefeated, he gets to rewrite a lot of that history. But where does this leave him now? Where does this leave him now? What is his legacy now? Is my question.
I actually look. I'll be honest. We can't have it both ways. We can't shit on Fury.
Exactly.
Call him a fraud. Call him this and that, and then those same people. Yeah, and then those same people after Usyk beats him. Oh, he's definitely number one pound for pound because I mean, look at what he just accomplished. Well, yeah, I mean, you can't say that if the dude's a fraud. Like, it's my opinion, but I've always thought, as much as the dude's annoyed me, I've never taken away from Fury as a quality of a fighter. And we just talked about it. Like, there is a lot of people that take away from Fury because he's so big, and Fury, for his size, is actually a really good athlete. It's hard to do a lot of the things he does given his size. And the proof is, when have you seen a dude at 6 foot, anyone over 6'5", anybody in the history of boxing over 6'5", that can move like Fury or box like Fury? Name them to me.
He showed that in the rounds too. Yeah.
Valuev was like, that dude was slow as fuck, bro. On old Holyfield, I'll box that dude, and Holyfield got robbed, bro. Okay? Like, David A was beating the shit out of that dude. Like, and I'm not trying
it's why I didn't like this narrative going in that the bigger heavyweights are necessary. They're every generation had an example of a big heavyweight that got beat up on by smaller guys.
Like, Fury found the way to be effective with his size, given his height, given his size, right? He found the way to be effective, and good for him. He had to be very creative to do it. He's a good fighter because of it. Now, with that said, if you're going to ask me where do these guys stand all time, here's what I'll say to people. It's not that I mind the conversations. I just think we're in the honeymoon stage of this Usyk victory.
Mm-hmm.
Let's let this victory bask for a little bit. Let's enjoy for what it is. There's people already like, oh, is he up there with Ali? Like, I mean, like,
it's recency bias, right?
Yeah,
that's what I'm battling with on Twitter. It's like, man, you need to calm down a little bit because.
But I'm going to be honest with you, people are not going to like my answer, Alex.
Go ahead.
And it's no disrespect to any dudes today, but can Usyk beat Ali? Fuck no.
Yeah, and that's the debates I'm having on Twitter.
I'm just gonna tell you that right now.
It's like you got to relax a little bit because look, beating AJ twice and beating Fury, I think those are really good fighters in a historically bad time in heavyweight boxing. That's just how I feel. If you want to say these guys are great fighters, there's certainly an argument for it, but I don't think they translate to other eras. That's just me. So I don't think. Look. Ali fought Joe Frazier 3 times. He fought Ken Norton 3 times. He beat the baddest man that ever lived. George Foreman was the baddest man that ever lived up until that point, right? And he beat him. George Foreman was in his prime. And how he beat him, too. The hell he went through to beat him. So I'll be damned if I'm going to, after Usyk beats Tyson Fury, say that Usyk would beat Ali. I just...
Sonny Liston.
I tend to agree with when you had Roberto Diaz on, and he said, you know, I I tend to give the benefit of the doubt to the earliest generation, the earlier generation when we're doing these mythical matchups. And he threw out, maybe Bud Crawford is a guy who translates to other eras, but not many other guys. Especially when these guys are fighting once per year. It's
Yeah,
just
but the other thing is, when I say I don't think Usyk could beat Ali, that's like, I have a lot of respect for Usyk. Usyk's a terrific,
yes.
amazing fighter. Like, you know what I mean?
To me, he's an all-time great, and I gave my
Yeah, I agree
criteria.
with that.
I gave my criteria for this because people just throw that out, and people will throw out just terms like of this era. But what is this era? What is this generation? How many years? So I try to make it as rigid as possible. D-style. I say 20 years is an era. So we go from 2004 to 2024.
But
right?
here, I just want to take a kind of. There's something Michael Jordan once said. Okay, somebody had asked him, "Do you think you're the greatest player of all time?" Right? And he literally said, "Believe it or not, Michael Jordan gave a very humble answer." Okay, but I'm not saying I know Jordan like that, but I saw his Hall of Fame speech. It didn't sound that humble.
No,
But but he did say, "Look, I didn't compete against these guys. So I didn't compete with a lot of these guys. So there's no way to know, is there?" Right? He actually said, "I'd rather compare teams, like compare my Chicago Bulls, with some other teams, because it's a team sport, I guess, is what he's saying." But he didn't compete with those guys, and it's true. We're never really going to know anyway, are we?
No. And it's tough to put stuff into proper perspective.
So yeah, and all somebody has to ask themselves is, have you been correct about every fight you ever predicted?
Yeah.
No, right? So the same goes.
Look at this past weekend, D-style. Look at all the upsets.
Right. I know.
Big upsets.
But here's the thing. I would rather just compare guys. Like, I would rather just separate the eras. Like, who was the king of every era, and let it be at that, and then you compare them with accomplishments.
And
right?
then you take that, and then you could go further with it, right? And that's what I was saying on my podcast Monday is you take that era, and then I feel like an easy way to do it is anybody who was in the pound for pound discussion as number one gets in that discussion as an all-time great. Like, and we have roughly a dozen of them. Even if you count Klitschko, throw Klitschko in there and throw Usyk in there as the heavyweight. You have a dozen guys from the past 20 years that you can throw into that pound for pound all-time great status. And then you go 20 years before that, and there's going to be more guys because that was a better era. Then before that, there's going to be more guys, better era. So you roughly have 150 to 200 all-time greats of all time. And that's good enough. That's good enough. Like, if you're in that conversation, one of the 200 best fighters that ever lived, pound for pound, that should be good enough. But then dudes take it too far. They're going to say, yeah, but I want him to be top 20 all time. Well, I don't know. Good luck.
I just think what happens, Calix, like, look, boxing has a rich history. Okay. Yes. And the reality is, when Ali was on top, people were saying, "Oh, you can't compare him to Joe Louis." And when you know what I mean, when Larry Holmes was on top, oh, this dude ain't a real champion. He ain't like Ali. Like it is what it is. Like that. This happens all the time, right? Now, granted, do I think the heavyweight division fell off? I do believe there was reasons for that, right? A lot of great athletes stopped participating in boxing. It is what it is. But there's been a resurgence in recent years. All we can ask fighters to do is to pursue and hunt down the best fights, right? And that's what Usyk has done. Mm-hmm. Usyk, there's no Ali. So some people are like, "Oh, he ain't never going to beat him out." How do you want him to do that? Even if he wanted to, there's nothing he could do, okay? Right? All he could do is go after the guys around his era, and the same was true for the guys in the past as well. Larry Holmes is not in control of who was fighting in his era. Like, he could just fight who he had. Mike Tyson couldn't control who was on top when he was on top. Jack Dempsey couldn't control who was on top. It's whatever to me, right? But if you want to keep comparing eras, what I don't like, Alex, right? Like, I don't like the extremes on either end. Like, there's guys that are too nostalgic. Like, I'm very nostalgic myself, but there's guys that are over the top with it. right?
There it is.
Somebody accomplishes something amazing, and instead of us just taking a moment to enjoy it, and wow, what an accomplishment by Usyk, and it becomes but I wouldn't even put it. He wouldn't even be able to carry a Laird Holmes jock strap, and it becomes like this, like, really, you don't think he could carry
I would say I'm guilty of that, but I remember growing up and Michael Jordan was in his prime, right? And we'd be playing basketball, and then old heads would say, yeah, but he's not Oscar Robertson. And then older white guys would tell me, yeah, Pete Maravich is the greatest ever. You'd have that nostalgia, right? And that's certainly part of it. But
I mean, that's true with Mexican boxing. Like, I remember like when Chavez was on top, and my grandpa was like, Ruben Olivares was better than this guy, like this guy. You know what I mean? And then like when the lawyer was on top, but he doesn't compare to Chavez, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And now Canelo's on top, but Canelo doesn't compare to these guys. Now some of the same dudes are saying, oh, Canelo can't compare to Oscar De La Hoya. The motherfuckers hated De La Hoya when De La Hoya was on top. Like, it just is what it is. It's a constant, never-ending thing. Ali had to hear, somebody mentioned Marciano. You have to hear it about Marciano. You have to hear it about Joe Louis. You have to hear it about all these other guys, right? It's a never-ending thing. Joe Louis had to hear it about Jack Johnson.
Sam
whatever.
Langford.
It just
even
it
Jack
never
Johnson,
ends.
even Jack Johnson had to hear it about Sam Langford. I mean, the thing, a guy in his own era. But this is the thing. I think we need to go to a place where, and social media has destroyed this. We talked about Stephen A. Smith, that thing, right? Skip Baylesses of the world. We can't just enjoy things. Like, can we just take a week of enjoying it before we start to make these comparisons in top 20 all time?
But Kelly, can we wait till these guys are retired and like
or that?
What's the rush? Like, you know what I mean? That's my opinion.
No, there's that. There's that, but there's a misery that everybody wants to take you into after a great thing. You just touched on this. It's all we ask for is you fight the fights. You fight the fights. There's a demand for this fight, and it's the biggest fight to be made. Just go fight the fight, and the fight is fought. If the fight is fought, then we're happy with you. But you hope that it lives up to the expectations. We've had so many fights not live up to expectations. Mayweather Pacquiao, there's still a stench to it that we all smell to this day, right? That whole saga of 5.5 years and then the fight that happened. This, yes, we wanted it earlier, but we got it. And I left happy with both combatants. I felt very much that Fury was a worthy adversary, and I was happy with Fury's performance. I was completely fine with it. I'm glad that this guy, through 7 rounds, was up in the fight, and even the 9th round, and going into he's surviving. He's surviving.
Can I ask you something? Can I ask you something? In the middle of that 6th round, what was running through your mind?
I thought it was a Fury fight. I thought after the 7th fight, I go look at the betting odds. I'm like, this is a Fury fight. This is his fight to lose.
Let me take it a step further, bro.
I saw your tweet.
Yeah, I actually tweeted out, this shit's over. And I'll tell you why. Because Fury was landing a big, those rights to the body were hurting Usyk. They just were.
They were.
And then not only that, Usyk, obviously to cover the body shot, you have to lower your elbow, right? And he timed it to where when he would duck to block the body shot, he was getting him with the uppercut. So he was making him pick his poison. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like, he's got him figured out. And let me tell you something. Any other heavyweight on the planet, I don't care, name him to me. I don't care if it's Anthony Joshua. If he's got him, he's got to get him there first. But if Fury got him to that position, where he's like, here's your body. Oh, you want to block it? Boom, here's your uppercut, and hurts him like that, and whatever you want to call it. Any other heavyweight, he's done. Fury ends him. It's a wrap, bro.
You saw when Usyk was doing that thing where he gets caught to the body and he takes that deep breath and kind of pulls his trunks down.
Yes, and Usyk having great footwork helped him get out of that round.
But that's the amazing thing about Usyk is the key to slowing down, and Fury actually outthrew He outthrew Usyk, and I didn't think that was going to happen. But the way to slow down the smart pressure fighter, which that's another layer to Usyk's game, is he's going to pressure you, apply
He's
smart
got
pressure, is to go to the body, and he did that, and it didn't work.
It
And it
almost
was
did.
effective. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's effective, but it's still not working. That was my argument for Lomachenko versus Haney. Is he's not slowing Lomachenko down with these body punches, and that's another thing that I touched on the other day that separates Usyk from a Lomachenko is Usyk shuts the door late in fights. Lomachenko does the same chess playing. He does the same chess playing that you're talking about that these other great fighters do, all-time great fighters. But he leaves things open for interpretation late in fights. He's done it in several fights. He's left things open for interpretation. I would argue, and I think it's I think it's the only argument to make because the guy's smart enough to drop his hands, is he was conceding body punches to Haney in order to continue to land his straight left, but he left it open for interpretation. Usyk, this is a separation between Usyk and Lomachenko, is Usyk shuts the door. He completely shuts the door on the opponent at some point late in the fight, and he did it again in this fight. That's what makes him special.
The interesting thing about Usyk is how he's doing multiple things at once. He's applying pressure, right? And it's at a mid-range pressure. It's constant. So every second of the fight, he's making you use your head. He's making you move. He's making you think. He's making you. So he, in a way, he's mentally draining you, right? And then, but he's also like, did you notice the left of the body very early in the fight?
Yeah.
It was boom down the pipe.
That was like, that to me. That's why he won the first 3 rounds. Is that straight left to the body he was using to set things up.
It was like he was stabbing or like boom down the pipe, and he wasn't. It's not like he was loading on the shot, hitting him. It was just nice and crisp, boom. And I'm sure Fury felt it and said, "That ain't too bad." Like Rocky Balboa. That is so bad. That is so bad. Like I mean, like what is this? You're just stinging me here or what?
But that's another thing that the great fighters right now. Let's just separate them. The big 3, right? Let's just take the big 3: Bud, Inoue, Usyk, and throw Canelo in there because he has this trait too. Is patience early in fights. Patience is they don't panic. They just don't. Canelo gives up the first 3 rounds against Munguia, and so at that point you got to win 7 out of the next 9. There's no panic in there at all. And Usyk has that same thing. It's just, Bud, there's no panic in there. They're going to get to you, and they know they're going to get to you.
So here's the thing with Usyk. So one thing I noticed was he started with the left of the body, pop, pop, right? Very similar to, remember when my daughter was jabbing the body of Broner, right? Mm-hmm. And he set up, whatever it was, second or third round, he kind of set up like the feint, kind of like made it look like it was right to the body, but then he comes upstairs. You know what I mean? So with Usyk, he was throwing the left to the body, and then he started like kind of at some point, Fury didn't know it was going to go upstairs or downstairs, right? But then another thing he did later in the fight was, it was almost like, I'm going to throw it up, never mind, duck slow, and then he was coming with the right hand.
That's that levels.
Yeah, he was changing levels, but then he would come over with the right hand, and the right hand started to land on Fury. So he will mix it up, right? And I think Fury at some point getting mentally exhausted. Plus, I do think later in the fight, he's breathing heavier, and he's probably wondering, how the fuck am I so tired? Well, he's been stabbing you with the left of the body since round 1, brother. So it's like it's kind of like the Titanic when it hits the iceberg. And at first, the Titanic's still floating. Nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody even took it serious. They were trying to get people in the lifeboats. Like, well, why am I going to get in a lifeboat? Like, this shit ain't going to sink. Like, you know what I mean? And then before you know it, it started to tilt over, and it looks bad. And then before you know it, it breaks in half and it sinks, right? It literally right away, because of all the damage that's been occurring. All the damage that occurred in the Titanic, right, when it was getting over flooded, most of that time the ship appeared fine, right? But then by the time they realized it's starting to sink, It was too late, right? For a lot of people anyway. So my point is not to bring an old tragedy to kill thousands of people but my point is shout out to them.
What kind of comparison? Shout out to them, right?
But
Shout out to the
you get what I'm saying though. Like a lot of the damage Usyk causes, almost in an instant, it's like a cliff. Like it just hits you all at once, bro. It just zaps you all at once. And I think that's what happened to Fury in round 8, and most importantly in round 9. All that was a lead up, right? Setting him up that way, and him being hurt that way in the 9th wasn't just that he landed a big shot that hurt him. No, it was a series of events that got him to that point. He was tired. He was mentally exhausted. His nose was busted. I heard Joe Abib and Bass talk about him changing the trajectory of how he was blocking the shot so he doesn't get hit in the nose. So Fury looped the punch and hit him over. Like all these things were all set up over time.
Yeah, but this quote right here, I was just about to bring up Holyfield because Usyk's a son of a bitch to fight, and it reminded me of the '90s. This great run that Holyfield fought when he fought all these bigger heavyweights, and he was just a pain in the ass to deal with for these guys. Holyfield, I mean, just the tactics that he would use, and the guy just never seemed to slow down. I mean, there are people out there who said he had a heart attack. I don't know how true that is. There are rumors that it's not true, but my point is, this guy would take you to places that you didn't want to go. Like who in the hell wants to fight that guy? Who in the hell wants to deal with that guy? That's a guy that this era would avoid like the plague, Holyfield. But it reminds me of him in that. I mean, ironic that they both step up from cruiserweight to heavyweight, cruiserweight champions. I would argue that Usyk's cruiserweight run better than Holyfield's, but the heavyweights that Holyfield fought in the 90s and the pain in the ass that guy was to deal with, it's watching Usyk is reminiscent of that. It goes back to the shorter, stronger guy that you don't want to deal with in the post. It looks like, okay, a smaller guy, I should be able to deal with that as a bigger heavyweight. But then when these guys get in the ring with him, you see he flips these advantages into disadvantages and then just becomes a pain in the ass to deal with. And Usyk's got that.
No, I agree with that. And I think little by little people are realizing the way Usyk wins fights. It doesn't really matter how good of a fighter you are. A lot of guys look good or have quote unquote success against Usyk very early in fights. It's just the way it is. And I think a lot of it has to do with leading you to a false sense of security. And that's what he does very, very well. This is a mental game just as much as it is a physical game. A lot is happening in these fights. All that feinting and movement, and a lot is going on, right? There's a lot going on in those moments. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate that. And I think this was a great fight. One more thing about Fury. There's a lot of talk about pound for pound, and I had this debate with Mario. I just smacked him around for like a whole hour. I don't know if he's gonna.
I want to say one. Yeah, go ahead, and I want to say one thing on that. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say this: that if you have pound for pound, I actually disagree with people that say, "Oh, you can't put Usyk on." I'm sorry. Usyk definitely makes sense to put pound for pound because he's a little dude fighting these big dudes, and then they say things like, "But Fury, you can't have him on the pound for pound. He's too big to be pound for pound." Like, because he's no skill. He's leaning on guys. He uses his size. He's just big and fat, and just leans on guys and beats them that way. It's no skill at all. I think that's a bunch of horse shit. If anything, pound for pound literally means if everybody was quote unquote the same size, this and that, but like Fury is carrying 262 pounds. He's 6'9". He naturally, because he's so tall, he doesn't have that natural center of gravity like most fighters do in other weight classes. It's just the way it is. The fact that he's able to do a lot of the things that he does, right, despite a handicap, and that's what it is when you're that tall. It's a handicap, right? When you're that tall and you could be so skillful, right? I would actually argue that you can argue that he could be a pound for pound fighter, right?
Mhm.
Because if
He's fast for his size, yeah.
Crawford was 6'9", Crawford wouldn't move the way Crawford's moving, would he? If Inoue was 6'9" and he was carrying 260 pounds, Inoue couldn't move that way, right? So what are we gonna do? Like the fact that he could do that at 6'9", imagine if Fury was 5'8".
Mhm.
Imagine if Fury was a welterweight and was 5'8", and was in shape. Now I get that's asking for a lot, but that's basically what you're doing with pound for pound, all right? I actually do think he is a very skilled fighter, and I think he accomplished a lot. Like the size was never. He found a way to make it, just like we talk about. Canelo found a way to make 168 an advantage, right? Oh, how's he going to compete with these tall guys? They're too tall, they're too big. Well, he found a way to use that against them. Fury found the way to make his size effective. He found the way to be successful despite that, okay? That's how I look at it personally.
Yeah, so Usyk's the first heavyweight I've ever put on my pound for pound list. And my workaround for that was,
I mean, that's fair.
My exception for that was he's not a career heavyweight. So I have to add an amendment there that I don't put career heavyweights on my pound for pound list because Usyk's coming up from cruiserweight. So it's simple. I already had Usyk high on my pound for pound list at cruiserweight, so I just kept him on as he moved up from heavyweight. So it's semantics. It is what it is. But my point is, I kind of like what you're saying with this is I feel like pound for pound is small potatoes, it's peanuts compared to what Usyk really is right now. No pun intended. It's almost too small for him in that you are the undisputed lineal heavyweight champion of the world. It's what was in jeopardy when we talked about this on your podcast after Tyson Fury stunk up the joint against Ngannou, right? This title has been meaningful for over a century. It's been the biggest title you can get in sports in America and by extension the world. And not so much anymore. However, Usyk seemed to have brought its reputation back on Saturday. And the fact that you are the baddest man on the planet, pound for pound shouldn't mean anything to you at that point. You're the baddest man on the planet. And we used to have heavyweight champion and then pound for pound champion, right? And pound for pound was smaller than the heavyweight champion of the world. You are the baddest man on the planet.
Let me tell you something that's not in dispute, Alex. And I'll just ask you, it's an obvious question. If we strip boxing of all the weight classes, there was no weight classes, and everybody was told just come in at your very best.
Usyk's
right?
the best.
Usyk would still be the champion of the world.
Yeah.
That's just the reality. Nobody bigger than him, nobody smaller than him, no man, woman, and child. Nobody would beat him under Marcus or Queensberry rules. No, he would still be the man.
And that's bigger. That's bigger than
that is
pound
bigger.
for pound. You're
100%.
the baddest man on the planet. You're lineal. You're the guy after the guy goes all the way back to the first heavyweight champion. You have all the belts that have meaning.
Look,
it's not disputed.
I have all the respect in the world for Ray Robinson. All right. I admire Ray Robinson as a fighter. All right. And I acknowledge that he kind of embodies what pound for pound is, and that's great. And I think being a pound for pound king in boxing is a prestigious title to have. It does matter, right? However, what we cannot escape, and the reality is that it's a fictional title. Usyk will never fight Crawford. We'll never be able to put, like, Usyk and Crawford will never be the same size and fight each other. That's never going to happen. What is not fictional is that the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world is the baddest dude on the planet. That is not fictional, right? The weight classes were created to protect the little dudes from these big dudes. That's the reality, right? Usyk don't need no protection. Usyk wouldn't Usyk wouldn't sweat it if he was told you got to fight Inoue tomorrow, right? Like whatever. Oh yeah, pick up somebody your own size. Go fight Fury. I already beat him up, right? It doesn't matter. That's the whole point of being the champion of the world. And I don't care how this sounds, but pound for pound was giving away Robinson because of the reality that he couldn't be heavyweight champion of the world. That's why. It was like, oh, man, we know that guy's the most skilled, but we can't call him the best because he's not the heavyweight champion of the world. Oh, pound for pound, he's the best, right? That's just the reality. That's how I see it.
You're the baddest man. You're now tied. Your lineage is now tied to greats like Klitschko, Lewis, Tyson, Holyfield, all these Holmes. Go back to Ali. You go back to Marciano. You go back to you got Frazier. You go back to Marciano.
Don't say Marciano too loud in front of AJ.
You go back to Joe Louis. You go all the way back to, I mean, it goes back over a century, D-Style. Jack Johnson. This is who we're talking about now. So you're not going to be worried. You're not going to be in the weeds about pound for pound. I guarantee you, Usyk is not worried about, does this guy have me number one? Does this publication have me number one pound for pound over Inoue? But he's not worried about it. He's the baddest man on the planet. That is
he ain't worried about
him.
your opinions
pound
either.
For pound. And look, I love the debates, pound for pound. I think it's meaningful. Although it is subjective, I do think it's meaningful, but that's beneath him. That's at his footstool. You are the baddest man on the planet. You are lineal. You're undisputed, bro. You don't need to be worried about pound for pound. Whether we have you on the list or not, you don't. That's beneath you. But I want to touch on this real quick before I gotta bounce.
Yeah.
Rematch. I do think both fighters will want it. I do think Usyk is honorable, a man of his word. All he needs is a handshake. He'll honor it. I do think that Fury would want it. I don't think that Fury would be able to make proper adjustments to win that fight. I actually think it would get uglier for Fury late in the fight than it was for this first fight. However, I do think money is going to be an issue here because the type of money Turkey is throwing around, and he can continue to throw it around, but there are other fights too. And I don't know if he's going to want to throw that type of money around again, a quick turnaround for October. I do believe that Turkey was expecting Fury to win this fight. That's what I think in my heart of hearts, that Turkey was expecting Fury to win this fight and that he was hoping to get to Fury versus AJ, despite what the rematch clause says. And I still believe that's a fight to make. Fury and AJ is still a phenomenal big fight. So I don't necessarily need to see the rematch. I do believe Tyson Fury deserves it. He earned that on Saturday. He's earned it. So if he wants it and the money's right, you take the fight, and I'd be watching it and I'd be happy. But I still want to see at some point Fury versus AJ. I still think we need to get that. We need to figure out who's better between those two guys. We need to figure that out.
100%. 100%.
I'm out.
All right.
Appreciate y'all.
Latest, brother. That's Calix, everybody. Make sure you subscribe to Calix, by the way. All right. Make sure you do that. I have a couple of more things I want to say here. Calix had some stuff he had to take care of. But look, man, fighting Usyk, it's like a virus, bro. Like it's like this shit's crazy. You know, like when you catch a virus, you don't get sick right away, right? It's not like it doesn't boom and then you're sick and that's not how it works, right? It just isn't. But it's like as the rounds progress, right, little by little, you start getting affected by the virus. And the second half of that fight starts. It almost always, like clockwork. By the second half of that fight, these guys are wondering what the fuck just happened. I was in control of this fight. Even Sora, Look, man, I was doing good, and then I don't know what the fuck happened. Like, you know what I mean? Every movement I make, this dude's smacking me in the face. Like, I don't even know what to do right now, right? And he successfully does this with every fighter he fights, right? AJ had 2 cracks at him, right? With McCracken, and then he went all out. He hired Robert Garcia, and he went on a hunt for trainers, trying to find somebody who could help him figure Usyk out, right? I would argue, and I argued then, that Joshua made a vital mistake doing the rematch right away. I think Joshua should have waited, right? He should have waited a little bit. Go back, get your confidence back, get some wins under your belt, watch some other guys fight Usyk, see if you see some other openings or something, and then go back in there, right? But that's not what he did. It is what it is, okay? The one thing I want to mention is this, and one thing I was wrong about, and I'm glad I was wrong about, is that this was not a boring-ass fight. I thought the fight would be boring, believe it or not. I did. I thought there would be boxing on the outside, and I didn't think the action was going to get going until maybe the 4th, 5th round. Like, I thought there's going to be a lot of feinting going on, high skill stuff, but I thought it was going to be very boring and hard to watch, and I thought Usyk would win a decision that way. But that's not what happened. This was a great fight. This was one of the best fights I've seen, especially at heavyweight. I thought this was a phenomenal fight, and I think that's one thing that is leaving people, right? Everyone keeps overlooking the fact that this was a great fight. Everyone keeps overlooking, like, I'm not saying do what you want. If you want to clown Fury, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but at the same time, don't sell the sport short for the accomplishment that the sport just had, right? We just had a fight with all this hype, and it delivered. The fight delivered. The fighters came to fight. These are the things we always say we want to see from these fighters, right? We're always hearing these tales of these great classic fights. We're always hearing about them. And they don't fight. They don't give us great fights like they used to. And well, this was a great fight. Like, when you have it right under your nose and it happens, you need to take a moment to appreciate it. You know what I mean? Like you need to take a moment to appreciate it a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't mind the rematch. I think the rematch is going to happen, but if it doesn't happen, I personally don't mind a trilogy with AJ. I don't think I've ever been in favor of a trilogy when a guy lost 2 in a row. I can't think of a time. But because AJ did good, did a lot better, I do wonder, can AJ do slightly better maybe? Or just enough to maybe get that win? Can AJ crack that code, right? And I don't think he can, but I wouldn't mind seeing him try. And somebody mentioned the IBF. Here's what I'll say, guys. And this is a frustration I have. Of course, the sanctioning bodies frustrate me. And of course, we have too many of them. And of course, I believe they're corrupt, and I believe they're paid off to get, fighters and position and rankings and stuff like that. It is what it is. It's done indirectly and all that, but still, my opinion aside, about them, the reality is this: you fans need to stop giving these sanctioning bodies too much power. Okay? Stop giving them too much power. All right? Because if I line up 10 boxing fans and Usyk is stripped of the IBF, and Dubois or Hrgovic, whoever wins that fight, becomes the IBF champion, and I ask those 10 boxing fans, is Usyk still the undisputed champion of the world? No, because he doesn't have the IBF. He's not holding the IBF. And the IBF, if you don't have that, you have to actually be holding the IBF. And now you're not undisputed. And that's it. He's not undisputed anymore. Whoever beats Usyk will not be undisputed. Even if they beat Usyk, it doesn't matter. They're not going to be undisputed because, I looked at the website. The four sanctioning bodies, they all recognize each other. And if you're not holding the IBF, then that's it. You're not undisputed. That's it. Okay, well, that's how you feel. I don't feel that way. Usyk is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. I don't give a fuck what the IBF has to say. You want to strip him? You want Dubois or Hrgovic to win the vacant belt? I don't care if they're holding the IBF belt. I just don't care. The undisputed champion of the world is still Usyk. Because he's still active and he hasn't lost the title. The title of undisputed champion. Like, that's just the way it is. No, but that's it. No, you have to be holding it. I don't care if they strip you. I don't care if they do this. I don't care. Okay, well, that's how you feel. Then you are giving too much power to the sanctioning bodies. You're giving them too much power. You tell them, I don't give a fuck if you stripped Usyk, and if we all unanimously say he's still the undisputed champion, then that's all that really matters, guys. That's all that matters. He's still the undisputed champion. If Parker fights Usyk next, hypothetically, and Parker pulls off an upset, and he beats Usyk, he's the undisputed champion. No, but he's not holding the IBF. I don't care if he beat Usyk. He's not holding the IBF. The IBF, I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck, bruh. You know what the winner of Hrgovic and Dubois would be to me? They're just going to be a title holder. They're not the champion. That's just the reality. As long as you're still an active fighter and fighting in that division, you are still the undisputed champion. That's just the way we got to look at it, guys. When Pavlik fought Jermaine Tater, go look it up. Go watch that fight. Michael Buffer said, this is for the undisputed middleweight championship of the world. Not all the belts were on the line. But there was an understanding that Jermaine Tater was the undisputed middleweight champion of the world. I don't think stripping a man and giving a vacant belt to another man puts your undisputed title in dispute. Sorry. That's not a dispute. At all. That's not a dispute, ladies and gentlemen. So, that's my opinion. And if you don't want to use the word undisputed, he's the man, the dude, the guy, the lineal champion. Point blank. There's some that believe we haven't really had a lineal till now. Since Lennox Lewis. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but some people say that. It's important, guys. It is, like, I just can't say this enough. The IBF has rules, and they're going to enforce them, and they're going to say, no. And look, to a certain degree, I get it. Like Hrgovic wants his title shot. He's been waiting for a shot. You earned a shot. I get it. So if he wants to become a title holder, whatever. But it doesn't mean to me that Usyk isn't that dude, that he's not the man of the division. That's not what it means to me. They could strip Canelo tomorrow. If he's still fighting 168, he's that dude. It's the truth. So, like, to me, we'll see what the IBF does, right? We'll see what happens. What I find funny is that the IBF never pressured Spence to do shit, right? Errol Spence beat Ocampo, and then he never fought another mandatory for years. Like, this is stupid, bro. Are you kidding me? Like, that's all I'm saying. Who's the other IBF mandatory that Errol Spence fought? Who? My issue is with the inconsistency of these motherfuckers. Look, now we're just following the rules. Okay. See, when did he fight Ocampo? He fought Ocampo 2018. Then he fought Mikey Garcia. Then he fought Sean Porter. And the WBC, I believe, was on the line for that belt. Sean Porter at the WBC that he won from Garcia, I believe. From Danny Garcia. And then he fought Danny Garcia. Was Danny Garcia the IBF mandatory, WBC mandatory, or a mandatory at all? And if anybody knows, let me know. Then he did a unification with Ugas. Then he fought Crawford. This dude went 5 years without fighting a mandatory. But Usyk just wins the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship in the world, and you're in a rush to strip him. Somebody explain to me why Errol Spence, same belt, it's not a different sanctioning body, it's the IBF. And if anybody wants to correct me, was Danny Garcia the IBF mandatory? I already know the answer to that, but it's a rhetorical question. But Usyk just wins the belt. Like, Usyk literally just won the belt. Oh, we're going to strip you. I don't know, man. Like, it is what it is. But the reality is, these belts to me are, they're titles and they're significant, but they don't symbolize once you become undisputed champion, right? Once you do that, it's kind of like, picture like Thanos, right? Let's say when he gets all the Infinity Stones. Once you got all the Infinity Stones and you got all those powers, in boxing, like, you keep those powers. Even if they take the Infinity Stones from you, you still got those powers in boxing. You don't lose them because somebody took one of the stones. In boxing, right? So I look at it. Yeah, they did it to Bud. Yeah, they did do it to Bud. We're going to strip you. Like, Errol Spence defended it against Ocampo in 2018, dude. Oh, but this style, he was in a car crash. Have some empathy. Okay. I get he was in a car crash. I get that. Right? But he came back after a car crash. He fought Danny Garcia. And even after that, he fought 15 months later against Ugas. Then he fought 15 months after that against Crawford. What's the fucking rush? I don't know. Here's what I know. You're not going to redefine to me what undisputed means. Muhammad Ali didn't need the IBF to be undisputed champion. All different eras, 4-belt era. I get it. But you're not going to redefine what being the man means. You're not going to redefine that to me. So we need to not hand them that power. quite frankly. Dubois and Herkovich, in my book, they're fighting for like, how can I put it like, that's like the third place game in the World Cup, bro. That's what that is. Okay? That's like winning the NIT to me. All right? That's like, whatever. But it's not the title. So that's all I'm saying. Look, there was a lot of upsets, guys, this weekend. Cordina got upset. Man. Sanchez got upset. He got beat down by Caballel. Kakashi, of course, beat up. Norman Jr. put a beat down on Santillan. I saw that one coming. I thought the odds were way too good. I actually bet on Norman Jr. Great fight. You guys should check it out. If you haven't already, that was a great fight. Probably the most exciting fight. I'm not going to say it was better than the Undisputed fight because the stakes were so high. It was a great fight as well. But I'll just say it was a very violent affair, right? Just brutally stopped them in the 10th. Navarrete looked like dog shit. There's no other way to put it. Shout out to Baranchik or whatever, but man, look, Emmanuel Navarrete looks like dog shit, bro. Like there's no other way to put it. I don't know what he looked out of shape. He looked flat. I don't know what's going on with that dude, but like it's not about losing. It's about you look like if he would have pulled off the victory, if he would have not gotten a knockout late in the fight or still won, I would have still said he looked like dog shit, bro. Like it is what it is. I don't know. Get a bit of shape, bro. Like, I mean, come on. Like, I'm just saying. And then, of course, you had I know I'm missing another upset. Like, I know I am. What upset am I missing? There's another upset. I know I'm missing one. That's what Roy Jones said, John Martinez. Holy shit. He beat, man, Frank Sanchez has some good wins. I don't know about that. Roy Jones. Okay, Roy. It is what it is. Okay? What are you going to do? Alonso was not impressed with Herkovich. I don't know, man. I think Herkovich is good. I don't think he could be Joshua, quite frankly, if that's the fight they're going to do. So it's whatever to me, quite frankly. So, but guys, I appreciate everybody that tuned in. I think Josh Taylor wins another controversial win against Catterall. Or it might even be, I'm actually thinking like this time, kind of you know what? I think it's going to be a twist of fate. There's going to be a twist of fate. I think the consensus is going to be that Josh Taylor won a close fight, but they're going to give it a Catterall. I just have this feeling that they're going to flip it. And then we might see a trilogy like nobody wants to see, but I don't think it's going to be a fun fight. But hopefully I'm wrong, but I think they're going to flip it on us. And I think Josh Taylor is going to be the consensus winner amongst the fans, but they're going to give it to Catterall in a very controversial fashion. I think that's what's going to happen. Kind of like a lot of people felt Barrera beat Morales the first time. In the rematch, I felt Morales clearly outboxed him, but they gave it to Barrera. So I think that's going to be in the judges' heads. Like, They're going to give everything close to Catterall because the consensus that he was screwed over the first time. I think that's what's going to happen, in my opinion. All right. And that is that. With that said, guys, even though he looked so great, I'm still a fan, though.
Feliz,
Never red.
feliz,
Never red.
feliz,
Never red.
próspero año y felicidad.
With that said, I appreciate everybody. Shout out to Lady Chan, John Martinez, Troy Mack, Alonso Villain, or is it Villain? Shout out to Eric Gomez, Mr. Boxing today too. Good to hear from you. Shout out to you, brother. Lady Chan, once again, shout out to you. Eric Gomez, Aztec 101. All you guys, I know I'm missing a lot of people. I know B was on the chat earlier. All of you guys, and have a good day. This is D-Style Boxing. Keep it boxing.
11, 10, 9, 8, 7,